Hi, how are you doing?
Good. Let's get this interview on with.
All right, let's get rolling. Let's not waste any time at all. Let's just keep going. Okay.
Okay. Why did you decide to become an author?
Why did I decide to become an author? Well, I wanted to be a writer ever since I was about your age. When I was like in the fifth grade, I used to write stories and comic books for my friends, and they'd laugh at them. Then in sixth grade, I wrote skits for my buddies to act in. Then in seventh grade, I had an English teacher who liked to laugh, and I liked to write funny homework assignments. And she wrote in the margins of one of my papers, "You will make your living as a writer someday." And when a teacher tells you something, I'm just going to be honest with you, you know it's got to be true, because teachers take a solemn vow to never, ever lie to children. From that point on, I wanted to be a writer. And in high school, I had some great English teachers, and I learned all about Shakespeare and Hemingway and Mark Twain. I went to journalism and advertising and broadcasting is what I studied in college. Then I moved to New York City with 7 suitcases, a typewriter, and a dream. And I started acting in improv comedy troupes. And I started writing for the Muppets, and I wrote a made-for-TV movie. And then around 1984, before I think you were you born in 1984? I don't think you were. In 1984, I got a job writing television commercials. And my first boss in advertising was a guy named James Patterson. And James Patterson left advertising and started writing books. I don't know if you ever heard of this guy, James Patterson. He's a little-known author. And
Wow.
he left, and about 20 years later, let's see, in the year 2001, I quit advertising, started writing books. So I wanted to become an author in 2001 when I was tired of writing advertising, and my first book was published in 2005. That's my whole life story. It flashed before my eyes like that.
What was your first book?
My first book, if you look up on this shelf behind me, there's one copy of every book of mine that's ever been published. And down here, it all started with this little pink one down here called Tilt-A-Whirl. And that was a murder mystery for adults that won an award that year for the best first mystery.
I read a bunch of the books that you did with James Patterson here.
Wow, you got a few of them. I see some iFunnies and some Max Einsteins. Oh, you got some of mine too.
Yeah, I read all the Lemoncellos and all the Welcome to Wonderlands.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, the Wonderlands are very funny. They've won a couple of awards, or they're up higher up here. Woo, they won earlier up here. Some of the awards the books have won. These ones over here.
All 4 of them are right here.
Yeah, they won a bunch of awards for being the funniest books of the year and that kind of stuff. Mr. Lemoncello won a bunch of awards too. This is my awards place back there.
Okay. How did you become an author, especially a famous one?
Well, I don't know if I'm famous. Somebody here in my apartment building asked me if I was famous once, and I said if I was, would you have to ask me that question? Because I don't know if authors ever really get famous. We sometimes get popular. It was a lot of hard work, because my first book, this one down here, came out. I wrote 9 books in the adult series. I wrote some thrillers. And then I started writing some ghost stories that won some awards, but only like a few people heard of. And it wasn't until I'd been doing it for 7 or 8 years that a book called Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library came out. And that one, that became a big bestseller. It was on the New York Times bestseller list for 111 weeks. But, nothing happens like overnight. You have to put a lot of hard work in. So my first book that anyone ever heard of was probably my 20th or 30th book that I had written.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What was your favorite book as a kid?
Oh, as a kid, I have some of them right back there. These are mad books, because when I was a kid, we didn't read books like you get to read in school. We had to read something called SRA, which was a big box of color-coded essays. And when you read the red ones and you answered the questions, you got to move on to the blue ones. We didn't read books in school. So I would save up all my money, and I got a subscription to Mad Magazine when I was 10 years old. And then every summer we'd go on vacation to Florida, and there was a place there called Web City, and they had a kind of a book section. and I'd go in there and buy like 6 or maybe a dozen Mad books with all, because they were only like 25 cents or 50 cents back then. And I'd save up my money all year, and that's what I'd splurge on. And Mad, I don't know if you've ever read Mad magazines.
I read a few of them.
Not as good.
I also have a whole book of Spy vs. Spy little comics.
So a lot of the parodies and the satire they did taught me more about the sense of humor and using words than any book I might have read when I was a kid.
Okay. How did you get ideas for a book, and how long does it take to write a book?
Oh, it's interesting because I've just spent this week, what I do now, because I'm very fortunate. I have some wonderful friends at Random House who publish most of my books I do on my own. And what I did all week today is I put together 7 ideas for books. And I just write 1 or 2 pages about what they might be about. Most of the books start with what if. So for instance, what if there was a boy who discovered that he had tiny little aliens about this big, the size of army men, living in his attic. So that's like a what if. What if there were 2 brothers who were eating at one of those pancake places where they give you the placemats with the pirate treasure map, and on one of their placemats, there was a real treasure map. And so you see, you just start with that what if, and that's where you start the story, and you spin it out from there, build your characters, have lots of twists and turns.
What was your favorite book to write?
My favorite book to write is probably the one called Shine! Which I don't see in your stack back there, young man. I think my mom just ordered it for the library. Okay, it's my favorite because I wrote with my wife, and we had a lot of fun writing that book together. It also has a great message, and a lot of schools have picked it up, and they're like studying it, like the whole 5th grade or whatever is reading it, because it's got a lot of fun, but also has a lot of heart to it.
What series are you most proud of?
What series am I most proud of? Probably the Lemoncello series, because I get emails from kids and parents alike who, see, I was a reluctant reader when I was growing up. I did not read as much as you seem to. I only wanted books that got like a movie started in my head. I did not want to read the broccoli books, the books everybody said were good for me. And I get a lot of emails from parents and kids who say that my son, my daughter, they hated to read until they picked up Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's library. Now they love to read. So there's something about the interactive nature of that book and all the games in it, and of course the fun and the characters, that gets a lot of kids who aren't excited about reading excited about reading.
Mm-hmm. I love the Lemoncello series too.
Great. Yeah, that's fun. And the new one's coming out August 25th.
Oh, a fifth one?
A 5th one comes out on August 25th, so it's not too far away. And we're going to leave the library and go to the town, the factory town where Mr. Lemoncello makes all of his games. And it's going to be the company picnic day. And you might imagine Mr. Lemoncello's Game Works factory is a pretty...
Is it the Imagination Factory?
The Imagination Factory is in New York. That's like the marketing headquarters. This is the factory where they actually make the games.
Oh.
And it's a zany place. And every year they have a big company picnic where they block off a block of Main Street, and they turn the squares of the sidewalk into an outdoor living board game. And this year, whoever wins the games at the company picnic will be the first ones inside a brand new mysterious building that Mr. Lemoncello has erected behind his factory, that nobody knows what goes on inside that building.
Okay.
I know.
If you could meet any famous person, who would you meet?
If I could meet any famous person, who would I meet? Alive or dead?
So, either.
Oh, either or. Well, let's see. A dead person I'd like to meet is William Shakespeare, because I love his plays. And a living person I'd like to meet is Bruce Springsteen, because I love his music. You probably don't even know who Bruce Springsteen is.
I don't.
But I love his music.
Okay. Do you have any advice for kids who struggle to write books?
Struggle to write?
Start to write.
Yes, hard time to write. Yeah, you know what it is you have to give yourself permission to write a really bad, terrible, stinky, no good first draft. Just pretend never show your first draft of anything to anybody. That's just for you, because I think kids, we're all, when we're kids, we're trying to get an A and we're trying to get good grades. And so we want the thing to be perfect. But nothing is perfect the first time. You know that book, Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library?
Yeah.
I worked on that book for 2 whole years and rewrote 50% of the entire manuscript about 8 different times. Nobody gets it right the first time, so quit trying to get it right the first time. Give yourself permission to write a bad first draft, double space it so you can go back, cut things out, make changes, and think of that as just like the fun draft. You're just going to put down the silliest stuff that comes right out of your head, get it down on paper. Then once something's on paper, you can go back and tighten it up and say, well, I don't need this. This is not, oh, this part should really happen down here. And other things, always write as if nobody wants to read what you've written, that you have to earn their attention with every single sentence and page that you write.
Okay. Any other books are going to be made into shows, games, or movies because you just made a new deal with a...
Yeah, you just saw I got a new deal. Well, there's people are looking at a new book of mine called The Smartest Kid in the Universe, which won't even be out till November 3rd, but we already have, advanced copies, and there's some people in Hollywood looking at that one. And they're going to look at another book called Dog Squad. And I think they're going to look at Shine and Welcome to Wonderland, which I think would make a great series on Nickelodeon or someplace. So there are some people looking and getting excited about it. And some of the books I did with James Patterson, I think Max Einstein, iFunny, Treasure Hunters, and maybe House of Robots are all in development, as they say, to become TV shows.
Where can people find you online?
Online, you can go to chrisgrabenstein.com, which is ChrisGrabenstein.com. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Okay. Thank you for joining me, Chris.
Hey, it was fun to be with you. Keep up the good work. I'm impressed by you, young man. Bye.